Hello again. Welcome back to this English lesson. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about passive voice. Voice refers to the who or what is doing the verb's action. By the end of the lesson, you will be able to listen and identify the passive structure, analyze the structure of passive voice and apply it correctly. Some keywords are is being cleaned, it's been used, I was told, it was based, I've been informed, they're decorated, you've been warned, have been made. During the lesson, you will be able to develop the four following skills: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Let us start by watching and listening to this video together.
Hello? Hi? Can you hear me? I'm outside the hotel. My room is being cleaned. It's a bit noisy.
Yeah, I can hear you, Mum. How's China?
Amazing. I'm in Zhangjiajie.
Where?
Zhangjiajie National Park. It's been used in a lot of films. I was told the scenery in Avatar was based on the landscape here.
Really? Wow. Has it got mountains a bit like fingers?
Yeah, that's the place.
So, how do you get up the mountains? Can you?
One mountain has an enormous lift. The biggest outdoor elevator in the world, so I've been informed. It takes you right to the top. It was fantastic.
What else have you seen?
Well, I met some local girls wearing regional costumes. They were absolutely gorgeous. They're decorated with bands of flowers, and there's a lot of red.
Oh, nice. But don't even think about it as a Christmas present.
Okay, got the message.
Good. What are you up to tomorrow?
Well, we're going to Baofeng Lake. I think loads of films have been made there too. It's going to be fascinating.
Cool. What about the language? Have you learnt any Mandarin?
Not much, to be honest. My guide translates for us. She's the best. Anyway, I'll call tomorrow and I'm back on Saturday. I hope to find everything clean and tidy. You've been warned.
Yeah, Mum. Have a great day tomorrow. Look forward to seeing the photos. Bye.
Love you.
As you were listening to the video, you might have noticed some verb structures such as is being cleaned, it's been used, I was told, I've been informed, they're decorated, you've been warned. All these are examples of passive voice. Let's read together these two sentences. Everybody drinks water. Water is drunk by everybody. The first sentence is an example of active sentence, since we can see that the subject does the action. Everybody drinks water. The second one is an example of passive voice, and we can see that the subject receives the action. Water is drunk by everybody. In other words, I would say we use the passive voice to emphasize the action rather than who does or who is responsible for it. Well, we already know that we form passive voice by combining the auxiliary verb to be in the appropriate tense and the past participle of the main verb. In this slide, I have introduced the way how we change a sentence from active into passive. Let's read together. Active sentence. The fire had destroyed the house. Passive. The house had been destroyed by the fire. To change a sentence from active into passive, as you might know, it's important to find the object of the active sentence. The object becomes the subject of the passive sentence. Then the subject of the active sentence, the fire, is introduced, becomes an agent, and is introduced with the preposition by, or sometimes it can be omitted. And we can see that the active verb remains in the same tense. but changes into a passive form from had destroyed becomes had been destroyed. Let's read some more examples and also find out about other changes from active to passive. People were bullying me at school. I was being bullied at school. People will award him a medal. He will be awarded a medal. In these two examples, we can see that the object pronoun of the active verb, such as me or him, has become the subject and also changed into a personal pronoun of the passive verb. It changes from me into I and from him into he. Let us not forget that we use by plus the agent when we want to mention the person who performed the action. I've also been supported by him. Generations of children have been taught to read and write by her. An article on role models is going to be photocopied by the school secretary. And we also use with plus an instrument, material, ingredient when we want to say what the agent used. The cake was made with fresh strawberries. Other examples might be hundreds of people's lives have been saved. Present perfect passive. She was loved by everyone. Past simple passive. He will always be remembered. Future simple passive. Tea is always served with cake by them. Present simple passive. He must be taken to hospital. Modal verb passive. How is honey made? Present simple passive, but a question. So, we often use the passive when we prefer not to mention who or what does the action. For example, it's not known, it's obvious, or we don't know want to say. In the example, my bicycle was stolen last night, we don't know who did the action, and that's why we haven't mentioned by him or by her. We often use the passive when we want to start a sentence with the most important or most logical information. The wedding ceremony will be held in a church. In more formal or scientific writing, potassium was added and mixed in. In this slide, we can see the table of the verb forms in the passive voice. Let's read together. Present simple. It is made from oil, garlic, and salt. Present continuous. The hall is being painted this week. Past simple. John Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. Past continuous. The signs were being put up last week. Present perfect. Oranges have been grown here for centuries. Past perfect. When he got home, he found that his flat had been burgled. Future simple. The work will be finished next week. What about questions in the passive voice? Well, to ask questions in passive, we follow the same rules as for the statement, but keeping in mind that the verb is in the interrogative form. Have they answered the letter yet? Has the letter been answered by her yet? When we want to find out who or what performed an action, the passive question form is who by or what by. Who was the film directed by? Don't forget, only transitive verbs, verbs that can take an object, can be changed into passive. Intransitive verbs cannot be changed into passive. So we say Jane lives in a detached house. Lives is an intransitive verb. And remember that we never say a detached house is lived by Jane. Some other intransitive verbs are have, exist, seem, fit, suit, resemble, lack, etc. In the example, John has a new mobile phone. We never say a new mobile phone is had by John. What about verbs that take two objects, such as bring, tell, show, send, offer, teach, give, and many others. Well, in fact, they have two different passive. Let's take the example Tom gave a present to me, active voice. And we can say, I was given a present by Tom in the passive voice, and which is more usual. Another way of expressing ourselves in passive is a present was given to me by Tom, but this is less usual. And this is time for practice. Rewrite the sentences in the passive, use an agent only if necessary. And don't forget to send it back to me. Well, that's all for today. Thank you and see you again soon.